evening, all, and welcome to Kalbardr's Corner for this first episode of Consort Conversations. I am Lord Kalbardr Geiler, Companion of the Meridian Cross, Companion of the Argent Comet, Companion of Compostela, and Reaper, coming to you live, as always, from the Barony of the Osprey on the southern coast of Meridians. Now, for this new series, you may recognize my co-host from a late night at the Corner Tavern, 3 times a Queen of Artemisia, and has served as a consort to the Duke Sean for 17 years. I would like to welcome Her Grace, Duchess Qamar al-Nisa. Good evening, Your Grace.
Good evening, Cal. Thanks for that introduction.
The Duke Sean reference out of the way for you.
Oh, thanes. Yes, I appreciate that. We're going to try to keep that down to a minimum, so you know.
That was our one for the show. We're done. That's it. I got it done. All right. So, Your Grace, if you will, let's start off with let's tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and all that.
All right. So, as you mentioned, I'm Qamar al-Nisa. Duchess Nisa is what I go by in the SCA, or just Nisa often. And I have been, as you mentioned, Queen 3 times in Artemisia. I have also been Baroness for one of our local baronies here in the Salt Lake Valley of Loch Salon. And I messed it up. Thanks, Cal.
Yes. Okay, so for the viewers, I specifically said, nope, I'm not saying that because I'm going to muck it up. And she's like, it's okay, I'll handle it. So I'm happy that I wasn't the only one messing that one up. Continue, please.
And anyways, moving on. I have, I was Exchequer for a little while. Just kind of filling in a little blank spot where we needed some help. And I just mostly drink a lot of mimosas.
Which apparently is a very popular skill among consorts, I've heard. So mimosas is a thing I've heard a lot of. So
it's definitely one I enjoy. So, you know.
Yeah, it seems to be a common trait. So, all right. So let's talk a little about the show. So the idea for this show came up. You first approached me about it, or it came up in conversation. I don't know, a few months ago. You're like, yeah, I've got this random idea. I'm like, cool, let's do it. And then you're hiding in a corner somewhere. So took some coaxing, we got you back out. But what is your what's the goal? Like what's our goal here? What are you wanting to get out of this for the next 6 to 8 episodes we've got planned?
So what I'm seeing and hearing is as far as consorts, and there's just not so much confusion, but there are some things that, having been a consort for as long as I have, which Sean just pointed out is 17 years, you pick up some stuff. And also, I wanted to be able to point out that it's not just crown contenders that have consorts.
Right.
An inspiration or a consort can come in many forms. It can be something that even someone just on a melee field, someone they may have can still be their inspiration. So it's not even just a tourney thing. It's not just a heavy thing. Our rapier fighters have consorts as well. You don't have to be a member depending on the situation, things like that. I just wanted to share some insights I've gotten along the way, and have some guests on that can also share some of their insight as well.
Gotcha. So you brought up an important point that I want to as we look forward to what we have coming up, right? So I've got the first 6 episodes already up on Kalbardr's Corner on the event page.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be covering how to be a consort, how to choose a consort, should I say yes, what if we both fight, and household dynamics. That's what we've got slated currently. We have some other ones that are sort of being refined still, and we're sort of looking for guests for still, but that's sort of the starting point. But I think the important point you made there, that this is not just about Crown List, right?
No.
This is not just Crown. This is not just Kingdom. This is literally the idea of being a consort to a fighter, yes. In all the things that it covers in that. So I want to talk to the viewers for a second about that. So if you guys have questions during this, please ask them. Throw them in the comments, throw them in the chat if you're on YouTube. We're either going to cover them on this show if they're topical to the what is a consort conversation, or if there are things about being a consort, how to do it, things to look for, whatever. We'll probably save them for the topical show that's appropriate to that, or we may find a new topic we need to cover. I know that happened on the last series. We found things that we just didn't think about when we first started doing the show as questions. We're like, oh yeah, crap, we got to do that one, right? So I have a feeling that's going to happen with this as well. So
that's my hope, and I really want to see. Thanks, Sean. I really want to see. You're a distraction, honey. Stop it. Now I forgot what I was going to say. See, that's what happens when he does shit like that.
He's cute, though. You have to give him that.
He is. No, right. But I want to see participation. I want to see your questions. Because those are the things I want to talk about. And there are experiences I don't have because of the way I came into the SCA, because of the way that I've approached being a consort. I mean, I kind of skipped the shallow end. So there may be some things that I haven't thought of because I did skip that end. So yes, I want to see questions and comments, and really would like to address as much as we can.
Yeah. All right. So I guess let's dive right into tonight's topic. So what is a consort? Like, give us the basic definition of from what does the dictionary say about it, and then what is it from an SCA context?
Okay. So the dictionary says a wife, husband, or companion, in particular the spouse of a reigning monarch. So obviously, in the context of the SCA, it's a lot more than that. Because our consorts and consort inspiration, number one, it doesn't have to be a reigning monarch, obviously. Like we were talking about earlier, all fighters can have a consort or inspiration. You don't have to be fighting heavy. You could be fighting rapier. And really, I believe that you could carry a favor even if you're not a fighter. You have someone that inspires you, whether you're a fighter or not, oftentimes, who maybe if you have that person that makes you a better person, that you want to celebrate, that's what consorting is. That's what favors are for. And that kind of also crosses into consorting. You give that person that favor to represent you on their belt. Right. It's a reminder, or the back of their shield, or however you choose to do that.
Now, so I want to I guess look at the definition for a second, because I think that's a really interesting thing to look at. So the idea of reigning monarch, right? So that's generally in the SCA, the time we hear consort most frequently or most prominently is sovereign in consort, right? So is the person who did not win crown is the consort, and I'm saying it that way because it does not matter king or queen. It is the sovereign who's the person who won the thing. Yep. And the person who they fought for is their consort. Now, generally, it is a king and queen being the consort, but we've had times in the SCA where that was not the case. So we try to be a little more open about that. But I think you're absolutely correct. The idea of being a consort is much more applicable than just that. Now, or at least it has been dragged to use more than that, right? So, and maybe that's wrong. Maybe we're using the term incorrectly. And per the dictionary definition, we are.
I like our definition, so I'm good with it.
Right. But I think the other idea that you said being the inspiration, right? So you have your inspiration leads to being your consort, right? So it's sort of like the same thing throughout. And unfortunately, because we have also used consort to be the person who you're fighting for in crown list, even if you don't win, it's sort of just trickled down to anybody you fight for becomes your consort, so on and so forth. So yeah. All right. So now I want to bring up that things we're going to talk about will at least between us right here will be very either Meridies or Artemision specific, because that's the kingdoms that we're both familiar with. Yeah. But your kingdom's rules and laws may vary. What it takes to be a sovereign or consort, what it takes to fight in crown list are different. So consult your local kingdom law for those specific answers. Now, I have a feeling there are some generalities that we can make, but also I know, like, with the West having an open list and Meridies having a closed list, those are clearly already two very different things, right? So the requirements for being a consort in Meridies are you have to have been in kingdom for a year, just like the person fighting in crown list. So, whereas the West doesn't have that restriction, so your mileage may vary there. But other than that, so I guess let's look at the two halves of that. So two parts. We have the idea of being a consort to the crown, or as the crown, and then the idea of being a consort to everything else, right? And that seems to be a silly distinction to make, but it's sort of a huge distinction, I think, because one of those has a legal requirement and one of them does not.
Yes.
Right. So let's look at that first. Let's look at the legal requirements for being consort to a crown or to a monarch within the SCA. What are some common things we need to look at with that? And I know I've already busted your outline a little bit here, but I think it works a little bit. So
that's okay.
One of the questions you have in there is, like, you have to be a paying member, right?
Yeah.
So what's the deal with that with being a consort either side?
So that's a good place where you would break it down. It does make a difference, right? If you're just, I say just, not condescendingly.
Right.
If you are a consort / inspiration for someone who is not fighting, I'm not even saying contender or non-contender, but not fighting in crown, okay? Or sometimes this also applies, depending on where you are, to like a baronial championship. Like our local baronial championship, we have some pretty amazing, especially one piece of amazing regalia that goes with that. And that actually goes to the consort to wear for the following year. So it's important that we're able to track all of that. And so part of that is we want your consort and you, obviously, because you're fighting, to be a member so that we know you're staying. So that's something that we do. But when you're, fighting and if you're fighting in crown, also, you have to be a paying member to even enter crown. Both of you do. And you have to meet whatever your kingdom requirements are. So like you were saying, we have there's some kingdoms where your fighter could be potentially out of kingdom, but your consort has to be in kingdom and meet the residency requirements.
Right.
The West has an open list, which means if the crown allows you to enter, neither one of you have to live there, but all crown tourneys have the membership requirement. So that's right. A straight across the board, no matter what.
And that's because essentially, if you win, right, regardless whether you think you're good enough to win or not, there's always the chance, right?
Yeah. So everybody can have a good day.
Right.
Anybody can have a good day. Anybody can have a bad day. You never know what's going to happen. So that's why that requirement's there for everyone that enters.
For crown lists. I assume the same would apply to cornet lists.
Yes.
And then also for the Palatine baronies, but any of them that are reigning monarchs, reigning figureheads.
Well, because those are considered offices,
right,
if you win, and so you have to be a member in order to hold an office.
Right.
So
you mentioned you're the local baronial defender tournament. First of all, I've never heard of one of those before. So give me a little bit. What is that? Because I have more questions.
So our local baronial defender tourney, we live here in Salt Lake, and so we have the great brine shrimp and we have to defend against the great brine shrimp, and the consort of the heavy fighter is considered the lady shrimp bait, and it's she who, let's see. Sean, how does this go? She who inspires, I can't remember the whole thing, but you get this really, really cool coronet that was one of our first pieces of regalia when we were just tiny. And I'm so sorry. It just started thundering and lightning here, and my dog just went under my dress. So yeah. And so yeah, but that is an extremely important piece of regalia.
Right.
So we like to keep track of it.
I
stories that are told. It's an amazing event if you ever want to come out in March and come see us. So
I need to, because I live on the Gulf Coast. Like I live where Bubba Gump Shrimp Company was based from, and we don't have any kind of brine shrimp tournament down here. So that I'm just baffled by this concept.
And we have someone that will. I have to tell you this too. So we have one of our gentleman knights who will. Yes, she who is most likely to lure the great brine shrimp from his lair.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, honey.
Yeah.
So, we have one of our gentleman knights that will dress up as the great brine shrimp, which usually ends up being kind of a lobster outfit, but hey, whatever. In armor, and the kids have to attack the great brine shrimp. They usually take their boffers, and he ends up throwing out candy at some point, and so they also have a chance to take down the great brine shrimp. It's a lot of fun.
That's fascinating. We need a whole show about that now. That new show series. We're doing one on the great brine shrimp. Okay. All right. Okay. So for this tournament, so obviously it's the fighter fights. They fight. What's their what is their job as a Bruno defender? And I'm asking this because it's a sort of leading question to then what is the consort's job, right?
Yeah. So in that situation, our fighter and usually his consort will end up actually autocrating the next year.
Okay.
So it's like a job. Like you win that one and you actually get a job and a cool piece of regalia to wear for a year. And it's a little coveted maybe by most of us that don't fight to find a fighter who will, get that for us at some point. I've been honored to wear it twice. So
nice. That's fast. Okay, so but the thing that comes with a job, right? So that is
a job, right? So if you're gonna say yes to being a consort for that, you have to consider the fact that there's a job attached to it.
Right.
And that leads into also crown tourneys, principality tourneys, the Palatine baronies, when they have their fighting tournament versus their arts and sciences. Yeah, it's something you have to consider, is if there's a job attached to it and what that will entail and if you're up to it.
Right. So right there, you call it a job, right? And it is. So the idea of being a consort can, if it is, any tournament that has a prize, one of the monarchies, one of the Palatine baronies, a cool shrimp hat. That's just, I'm gonna be stuck on the shrimp hat for a while now. So yeah, it could come with a job, not only for the sovereign, or for the winner, but for their consort. And that's some of those are much easier, some of them are much harder. Okay, so I mentioned this earlier about the idea of anybody can be crowned. Clearly, male, female doesn't matter. So who can be a consort? Are there any restrictions?
As far as I'm aware, there's no restrictions. Male, female, gender identity doesn't matter. Probably needs to be a human. I do believe that might be a restriction if you're fighting a tournament with a job attached.
Right, and that's the important part. Again, the distinction to make there.
Yeah,
I think age would also be a matter too. Most of them will probably require adult.
Most do, however, not always.
Right.
So, like at Battlemore, one of our fair knights, Joel, his beautiful, lovely woman was not at the event, and he fought for our daughter. So their deal is he will fight for, someone, maybe someone it's a child or something that he can fight for, and she had the best day ever. So I just like to tell him that as often as possible. She totally did.
There you go.
But yeah, so they don't always have to be. It just depends on, again, we're back to if there's a job attached.
Right. All right. So let's look at the other half of it then. So the things that aren't job attached, which is going to be 90% of them, right? 90% are probably 95. I don't know, some large number. of tournaments, of wars, of fighter practices, whatever, where you're fighting with some inspiration, some consort, some person you're fighting for that day.
Mm-hmm.
Can it be anybody?
It can. Right. It could be the person. If they want to stick around and watch you fight, it could be the person walking by.
Right.
You know, if you're at a fighter practice and you have some people standing around and they are really, you know, they're kind of interested and you want to get them more involved and you don't already have someone that you're fighting for, or maybe it's just a fighter practice, so you've made a previous arrangement with that person, or you don't have someone, you could totally say, would you be my consort for the day or for this fight? So that's something that all the fighters have the power to do.
Right. Which so that sort of brings to a point of, this is not a relationship, right? Or I'm sorry, it is a relationship, but it doesn't have to be a relationship, right? It doesn't have to be a romantic couple.
Nope, it does not have to be. It doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It doesn't have to be a long-term relationship. Again, depending on the job that's attached, we'll get into that later. You'll want to make your considerations, but yeah, no. As far as I'm aware, there are no restrictions on who inspires you, because nobody can tell you that.
Right. Oh, I like that. There are no restrictions to who can inspire you, because no one can tell you that. I like that. All right. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here.
Okay.
Why did you want to be a consort in the first place? And then also specifically, like, what led you to being Sean's consort? How did that happen? Tell us about your first time.
Okay. So I totally missed the first question.
Oh, so why did you want to be a consort?
Oh, why did I want to be? I didn't know I wanted to be fair.
Oh, fair, okay.
When I started playing, I was what was considered fringy.
Right.
I was hanging out with, you know, a crowd of people that I came with. I was there to party, have a great time. I was young, just got out of a marriage. I was like, yes, this looks like fun, and I get to wear funny clothes, so whatever. And then eventually I met Sean, and once we started getting involved, and one day he just was like, I would like to fight for you. And I was kind of like, okay. And I mean, it was a baronial defender tourney. It wasn't that one, but there wasn't necessarily a consort job involved. It was just an honor to have him fight for me. That was his way of telling me, I think. No, I know. It was his way of telling me that, you know, he liked me.
Aww.
And so my way of saying I liked him too was to say yes. So it really was that simple at that point.
Right. Okay, so it wasn't like a conversation you guys, it was just a...
No, that one was just a same day, hey, can I fight for you? And it wasn't like a can I fight for you forever. It was just a can I fight for you today for this tournament?
Right. Okay.
I was like, okay.
All right, so looking forward to your first time as a crown consort.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about that conversation. How did that come up?
So we reigned as Baron and Baroness before.
Okay.
I had him fight and crown for me, which I'm very grateful for the experience. I was also by his side when he fought for someone else. He made Kal and Duchess after we were together. That was part of a conversation we had earlier.
Right.
I knew I wasn't ready.
Right.
That whole concept scared the heck out of me. So that gave me some time to sit by and watch his side and his perspective of how the reign was going. So I could ask questions as stuff came up. And I could just kind of sit back and watch and learn.
So you sort of had like a consort training wheels session. Like,
yes.
You're like sidecar.
I was the knocked up concubine for that reign. So
that's right. That's right. Because
it was a great experience, actually. Right. And then, you know, once he moved through that, then it was like, okay, now I think I'm as ready as I'm gonna be. And we talked about it and decided that him fighting for me was where we wanted to go with that.
Right.
But it means travel. It means splitting up sometimes. I had to consider the fact that The only reason I'm talking right now is because I have just maybe some gin and tonic in me. And so if I'm reigning though with him, that means sometimes I may have to go do stuff on my own.
Right.
And so we had to talk through that too, because that's hard for me. It's gotten better over the years, but super hard for me at the beginning for sure.
Right. I can see that. All right. So so I asked you this before the show when I was doing the sort of introduction prep, but so you've only consorted, so 17 years with Sean.
Mm-hmm.
And there was mention of sort of padding your future, I would be a double duchess or a triple duchess, but that's so. But have you considered having consorting for someone else? Has that ever come up in conversations or?
Nothing too serious. Right. There's a few close friends that if they felt that I would be a good consort for them, I would make myself available. If they wanted to fight and they just didn't feel they had anybody in their lives at that time. And usually what that comes down to, and I'm not going to name names, but whether it's a crown contender or maybe a squire and I'm just making stuff up now because all his squires are married. So nobody make up any stories in your head. It's one of those things that I can do.
Right.
And especially, I shouldn't say especially, but like I said, even if they're not a crown contender, just to have them someone there to fight for, someone watching them, someone supporting them. At this point, I just haven't been needed in that way, and that's fine. But there are a few people that I'm available to in that way if they need me.
Good. Well, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So other than so sort of straight back, we have a couple questions that come up in chat that I want to bring up. I've saved a couple for future episodes.
Okay.
One of the topics came up there a second ago. You talked about so that you were the concubine during Sean's previous reign. We actually have one of our topics is the my significant other is fighting for someone else. Right. That's one of our sort of what we're still working on because I think that's an important one. It's one that's actually important for me as well. Being someone who is a poly mindset. Right. I have multiple partners that I could fight for at any given time, and that makes the single partner thing difficult for or for inspirational purposes. But so other than crown tournaments, other than the ones that come with a job, right?
Right.
I know there are other tournaments that require a consort inspiration, something to be there that day, right? Yes. So not all I know with some of the crown tournaments, the consort doesn't have to actually be there. For you to fight for them. Some of them require,
depending on the kingdom.
Yeah, kingdom law may vary there, but it's not actually required. I know there are some tournaments that require that, though. What goes into that as far as, or is consorting for one of those tournaments different or that sort of thing?
Do you mean when you don't have?
That was a weird question. Let me rephrase. Hold on.
There was a lot in there.
There was a lot. I talk a lot. You should know this by now.
That's why I'm partnering with you.
Right. You're like, I'll hang out with Cal. He'll just do all the talking for me. It works. All right. So let's look at what does a consort do, right? And that's our next topic. But let's sort of give a basic definition. Other than being an inspiration, which is a giant vague term.
Right. Vagary all over the place there.
Vagary. What's the sort of basic job details for a consort, not a crown consort, right? Not the job.
Okay, so just a consort in general?
Yeah.
There's a reason we have an episode dedicated to this, but in general, for me, and that's where it gets the whole episode comes from, is because it's different for everyone. But for me, when I'm consorting for Sean, it's a matter of if he's fighting a tourney in general, just hey, I'm going to fight this tourney. I'm like, okay, have fun, honey. I'll be doing something somewhere, right? And so in those cases, I just kind of make sure at some point he's drinking water and has food, right? It's pretty hands off, but it depends on your fighter. Right. Also, during a crown tourney, or maybe maybe some of the more high profile tournaments like Cancer Rose's tourney or some of the bigger Estrella tourneys or like that kind of stuff. Sometimes it is a matter of me being there and physically supporting him by standing by the fighting Eric, and watching him and being there for him when he goes to salute, his consort. And then it's a little more hands-on of making sure that he's got enough water between rounds, and he actually doesn't usually eat too much, but just being more involved in the moment,
right,
to whatever your fighter's needs are. And again, it's this huge chasm of what it could be,
right,
because everybody's a little bit different in their needs. But for me, that's what it is.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that it's really a loaded question, right? There is no one answer to what does a consort do. And you're right too. The idea there are different levels, right? So you have your crown level tournaments that have a job. You have your roses tournaments, your sort of high profile tournaments, the things that some of them require. So actually, the Meridian Rose tournament at Gulf Wars, it's a really great example of this.
Mm-hmm.
Requires you to be sponsored by a rose. So so effectively for that day, that rose is your consort, right? They are your inspiration for that tournament. Yep. And that's something that the roses pick those people for themselves in whatever way.
Great West has that as well.
Right.
And I actually, Sean might have fought in that one for me once, but I usually have other people that, other fighters.
Right.
For that tournament specifically. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I was very sad. It's one of the things the pandemic took away from me this last year was I was going to fight my first Rose tournament. Last year, so I'm hoping the favor Countess Guinevere was going to be my Rose, and she made a favor for me. It was really pretty, and she still has it. I told her you're going to hold on to that until I can take it from your hand.
I was like, make sure you save your place. I was actually just thinking of that the other day, and I have someone that's fought for me for a few of that specific one at Great West, and I'm like, I need to talk to him and make sure he knows. I'm like, I still have dibs.
Right. Yeah. So I'm hoping when Gulf Wars gets to happen again, probably not this one, but the actual next Gulf Wars, will to actually take the field for that. So, so that's a really great example. It creates
bonds like that. Right. Like it does, like even a non-romantic relationship, it does. It can create bonds like that, and it's really neat and it's really fun.
So actually on that note, we had a comment that came up that I'll bring on the screen to make you blush a little here. So it says, my first rose and butterfly tournament, I fought for Nisa. She watched me fight and encouraged me to fight honorably. She also made sure I stayed hydrated. She showed me what a consort is that day. So there you go. Little
Thank you, Enrique.
So that's really great. There you go. That's a great example of the inspiration, right?
Yeah.
That's you because you have the experience, you were able to do that for another fighter, show them for that day what that meant, and that's really neat. Let's see.
And fighters need to remember that, when you say you're fighting for the honor of someone, most of us are going to take that to heart, and it means something. And, we're super excited that you asked us. And it's a huge honor to fill that role. And sometimes when I get to do that for others, like, when I have my champions, or like you get to do the roses tourney, or just being that, for lack of a better term, the safety chick that day, because maybe their significant other isn't there, but they're the type of fighter that needs some visual person to stand there. It's more than that, but it's an honor to be able to do that for anybody.
Right.
So, yeah.
Which I think clears the last question we had. The why. Why would you want to be a consort, right? So it's an honor. I think that's really the biggest thing. From again, having never been one. I've only been the fighter on that side of it. But people I've talked to, that really much what it is. It's a honor to serve as an inspiration, either for the day, for a year, for a lifetime. That's part of that.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that goes into it for the whys?
It's an honor. When it comes with a job, it's usually because your person that is your other half, what, not romantically necessarily, but just the other half of your team. Right? So you've got someone that you can compliment. So if it is a tournament with a job, you guys it's an adventure you're going to take together. And it's exciting.
Right.
And you hope that when they look over and they see you, it reminds them of, I'm not saying they need a reminder to be honorable, but it just kicks it up that extra notch to have someone standing there really like watching you and excited for you, that you want to do well for and be honorable for. Not just yourself, but that other person as well.
I would imagine it helps with a bit of the humility as well. So I've never sat a throne, I've never sat in a fancy chair, so I don't know, but I can imagine, especially that first time that you put that get a crown on your head, that you get a bit of a big head about it, like that can swell that ego a bit, and I think having that inspiration help sort of keep that in check, to remind you of to be honorable, and you sort of go through that helps.
So that whole word humble, it just reminds me of Sean will tell you this as well, so I'm going to tell you this.
Okay.
The reason I've been his inspiration and his consort for 17 years, or at least part of it, is because he calls me his ego containment unit.
Gotcha.
So it lends to that, definitely. Yep. Balancing each other out, remembering that you are part of a team.
Right.
I've seen people do the baronial thrones single person.
Right.
But that's a single person sitting on a baronial throne. You would be amiss to think that they're doing that alone. They have a team behind them, and it's the same with someone sitting on a throne. It's the same with someone winning a defender tourney where they need to step up, or a champion tourney. Just because if your royal champion is someone that's going to be traveling with you, and say they have a family, and so that means that their wife, and this kind of goes to even if you're fighting for not your spouse, right? She still has to support that, because she's the one taking on, or whoever's staying home with the kids is the one taking on that family responsibility, so that you can take off and go take care of the crown and fulfill that job. So it's team efforts, and I think that's part of consorting as well.
Yeah, and that's a whole conversation right there, right? The idea of especially when you're looking at crown things, like if you're not the one or the other, you're the other half, or how do you balance that? I think maybe we should add balancing work-life balance to our list at some point, because that's an interesting conversation.
Or you just threaten your husband with, I think I'm going into labor, so you can't go to Montana.
There's clearly a story there we'll save for later. All right. So we've had a couple questions come in I want to hit you with. Some of these are, I think, sort of specific to you, or sort of your conversation, but we'll probably save them for later as well. So for you, as from Her Excellency Remote, what is the hardest part for you to be a consort? What is your hardest task?
I think it has changed through the years. Obviously, when the kiddos were younger, keeping track of them. I'm really fortunate. We've always had a lot of help. Sometimes they stay with my parents who don't play, or we have help, at events and stuff. But it's a balance. Or when he was reigning with Karen, there was a lot of, even though we didn't have any kids at home, it was just not going with him, and for whatever reason, like I had to work, I couldn't take all that time off all the time, so I had to stay home, and I had to be willing to just be okay with him going.
Right.
So there was those types of balances. Now it's it's gotten easier over the years, I think, just because we know each other so well.
Right.
And we've worked out our balances. So we have that advantage at this point. I think the biggest one was when the kids were little, and I'm sure like if you work a job where you can't take as much time off.
Right.
And so or you have to split up, sometimes that's hard. Or sometimes it means not going and doing the other thing. So not walking over to the arts and sciences tent because your fighter's the type of person that needs you standing on the field.
Right.
They need to know where you are in those moments. It can mean, I would say that would probably be one of the bigger ones, is just missing out on stuff that you want to do. And it doesn't always have to be like that. It's generally going to be during bigger tournaments, I think, when that type of stuff happens.
Right.
But it can happen. And it is something you have to consider.
That's a really good point, actually. That's because being a consort is a job. Like it comes with like responsibilities at the event, right? So you do miss out on other stuff, just like the fighters do, realistically. Something that I think I'd like to see us improve SCA events maybe a little bit, and so have those things where we can do more of them. But unfortunately, there's only 24 hours in a day. I like to sleep some of those at least. So so we had a follow up from Her Excellency. What is one thing you wish you knew prior to being a consort? And maybe even answer this twice. So you've sort of prior to your first tournament and then prior to your crown tournament. What are some things you wish you knew ahead of those?
I wish I would have been aware, at least for my fighter, how much it meant to him to ask me that first time. I didn't realize, because I was so new, the significance of him asking me.
Right.
Just so I could have appreciated that moment a little bit more.
Right. Because it only happens once, right? That was your one.
That was my one, right? And then, what was the other half of that, Cal?
So something from before your first, like
before and after. Okay.
Consort.
So, like I said, I was kind of fortunate because I was really fortunate because I sat there and watched a reign that I wasn't involved in. If you ever get the opportunity to be on retinue or to just do anything that you can to be near a reign, to just even get that general idea, it's not going to give you the full picture, but it will help.
Right.
And so that helped me when I did finally say, yes, you can fight for me. That helped a lot. Because without that, I really wouldn't. And even with that, you still don't completely understand what you're getting yourself into.
Right. Well, I mean, it took away the initial butterflies, but there's still some panic there. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So we have this one may be a little harder. I'll be curious to see your answer to this from the host of Ask Nights Baron Logan Pathwarden. Is there anyone that you admire as a consort, or someone that you try to emulate as a consort?
There are many people I admire. It's hard to narrow down one person.
Or maybe some actions, maybe things you've seen, that's a neat thing. I'm going to start doing that thing, or things like that you can maybe think of.
So I learned when at a camping event, right? And the boys, I say the boys loosely termed, the fighters are all out on the field, right? And some of us are still back in camp, and it's kind of getting towards lunchtime, and there is no way they're coming back anytime soon, right? Whether you feed them or not, they're not coming back. So, now I just blanked on her SCA name. Sati. Duchess Sati taught me early on how to take care of, especially as part of a household, and this kind of goes to the whole household dynamics, but I stepped into a household that was already established. So I had to take on some training, and she was amazing. And it was the little things like making sandwiches or cutting up some meat and cheese, taking some water down to the field for the guys, for the fighters, and making sure that they're getting something, cutting up pickles and bananas and just salty chips, things like that, that you know that they need. And just having that ready to go and having that, taking that down to the field, and then being able to share with the people around you. Like, we make extra so that we could share. And although that wasn't necessarily a consort thing for one person, it is part of that whole concept.
Right. No, that's a good point. I think you have those people that are I'll say better at that, right? So you have and especially speaking as the Southern gentleman in the room, it's a very Southern thing, right? We want to give food, we want to have water, like that's a thing you see. So I know we see very commonly around here that every tent you see around the field has food and has drink, has availability, and that's not as common in places. I think that's a learned skill.
Yeah, between Her Grace Karen and Her Grace Sati, I learned a lot of that kind of stuff. I learned it's just the learning your fighter. Do they want you there on the field? Taking the time to do those things, and just being there if that's what they need, or going away if that's what they need. Some fighters do not do well when their consorts are on the sidelines. They need their consorts to go find something else to do and not be anywhere near them. So it's just, I learned a lot from them to listen to your fighter, though.
All right. From His Grace, Christopher of Houghton, how has being a consort changed from when you first were asked to now? So 17 years. The SCA's changed a lot. You've changed a lot. What's the biggest difference for you?
The confidence in myself. And I know that sounds kind of like a weird thing, but obviously when you start out, it's kind of the whole, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just charging forward and hopefully I'm doing it right. But over time, I've learned to watch other people. I've learned to ask questions. I'm always watching for ideas, like you were saying, watching what other people are doing. It's amazing what you can learn from others, just seeing how they're taking care of each other.
Right.
And think, why didn't I think of that before? Well, you know what? I'm just going to go from here and I'm going to use it.
There you go.
As far as the SCA specifically, over time, rules and things have changed, but I don't think... I'm glad that the ability for your consort to be anyone has opened up.
Yeah, that's
a change of availability more than what needs to be done.
Right.
Like on the field.
Yeah,
on
the actual
field.
Physical doing of it hasn't changed to that, right?
Yeah.
I know that's something I think that there's probably the biggest change in being a consort is who can be a consort has changed fairly significantly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to try to quote a time for that, but it's in the last few years, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was sort of allowed before that, but maybe less common. But now it's like a codified in the rules allowed. The SCA may not get everything right. We may not be 100%, but there's some things we've done better in the last few years, and that is definitely one of them. So
yeah, we may be a little slow, but at least we're catching up. We're trying.
Things are getting better though. We had a comment from Sir Tierlock. Apparently, the sideline sandwiches have saved them on more than one occasion. So there you go.
Yep, and that was, like I said, that was his comment. Goes back to those that I learned from.
Right. It's important, and I'll speak as a fighter. We appreciate all of you for that because I need my sandwiches. Sifa will tell a story about me from my early days as a fighter, and this was actually before her and I were dating, married, engaged, anything. She was just sort of the house mom. I'm out there fighting, having a good day, and just started just tanking. She's like, "Hey, what have you eaten today?" Really, Mike and Ike's was the wrong answer. So I got in trouble for that, and she made sure I had food. So now she knows part of what she has to do for me is make sure that I eat actual food, not just Mike and Ike's. So go figure. I don't know.
And now I'm more of the teacher than the one needing all the guidance anymore, and that's kind of fun too.
But that's part of sort of the, I guess, part of the job of being a peer, right? So you're a peer of the society. You are a royal peer. You're passing that down now, right? So just like a laurel passes down their art, you're passing down your art of being consort, right? Like that's an important thing. Mike and Ike's. It's. I heard the audible go, yeah, from the other room when I said that. So, all right.
Yep.
So we're just about an hour, by the way. I know you were panicking. We weren't going to get to an hour. We're just about there. So I'm going to do a little bit of business, and then we'll do some final thoughts. We had a couple questions come in that I'm saving for a future episode, specifically one about disabled consorts. I wanted to give that some airtime real quick. That's a question that I really want to dig into. I don't think either of us are prepared for that question today.
Not at the moment.
Yeah, so definitely. But thank you for that question,
but
Dawn.
not ignoring that question for sure.
And I responded in the chat to make sure. So I've put that on our list. I definitely want to address that because I think that's a really important conversation that I had not considered. So thank you for that question. And also the ones from Remote I'm saving. I think I want to make sure we ask sort of all of our guests those same questions because I think that'll give us some interesting sort of context for those questions as well. So thank you for the questions that are coming in. And please keep them coming, either in the chats now or either in the comments later. If you think of something later, let us know because this show will definitely grow like What Makes a Night did. We want to really give you guys what you want. So, so speaking of that, so coming up, our next episode of this, of Consort Conversations, will be how to be a consort. So we're talking a little bit about what is a consort. And we've talked about some of the how to be. But I think so. We'll dig into some more of the sort of the daily tasks, what a consort can do, and we'll have some guests on. Do we have our guests confirmed for that one yet?
I have one guest confirmed, and that is, and I'm gonna screw this up. Her Grace Anna.
There we go. Okay.
Who is in the East Kingdom right now? His Grace.
Sorry about that.
Brian of Tarragon. His beautiful, wonderful consort. So, and I've actually learned a lot from her as well. So I'm excited.
I can imagine being Brian's knight or Sean's knight rather. That would be a useful conversation to have. So yeah, awesome. And we have a couple others that we're trying to lock down for that. So I think the goal is for everybody's reference, we're going to try to have 2 guests per show. Some of them may be 1, some of them may be 3. So just we're just kind of winging this, folks. So. But actually, it's something to think as you look out to the next episodes. If you're out there and think of somebody, oh man, this person does a really good job at that thing. They might have some thoughts. Send it to us. We only know so many people, so we'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to have some different opinions. So please just send those to us. Just Kalbardr's Corner on Facebook or YouTube or whatever. Just contact.
And I just want to make it really clear. This is not just about. And I know Her Grace Anna is a rose, obviously, but
right.
It's not that I don't want this to be a roses show. Like, I want to talk to across the board of, yes, rapier fighters have consorts as well. And that's important to address. People that are not crown contenders, whether it's by choice or because they're newer or whatever the situation is, they have consorts as well. And your consorts are just as important as a crown contender consort.
Correct. So please send us those. We're happy to have new and interesting guests on for those conversations. Yep. All right. So, also coming up this week on Kalbardr's Corner, we have Master Lash, his fantastic fringes and where to find them, where he'll be joined by the Honorable Lord Caspian Blackrune for the first episode of Fantastic Fringes. I'm super looking forward to this series. Lash is excited. He has we actually brought a new tech guy as well, Justinian, who's backstage currently hanging out, sort of watching how we do things. I'm super excited to see what they're going to do with this. There's already so much going on that I'm sort of just terrified, sitting back, going, "Oh God, oh God, oh God." But I'm tune in for that on Tuesday. It's Tuesday, 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Pacific. It's going to be chaos and fun.
I am looking forward to that as well. So yeah.
And then next Sunday for Coffee with Cal. I'm going to be joined by Baron Wistrick often for recruiting in the new age. Nice. So Wistrick is, I've actually had Wistrick on before, him and Suniva. They're the Baron and Baroness of South Downs currently. I had them on one of the gaming shows one time. Wistrick is great. He's a mod here in Meridies. But this is going to be a bit of a weird episode. So Wistrick is going to be acting as the voice of the young whippersnapper. And I'm air quoting that because that's what he's called him, so I'm quoting Wistrick on this. So the topic came up about recruitment, and this person who is unnamed, I don't even know who they are, had some opinions, expressed them to Wistrick, and Wistrick said, all right, put up or shut up, kid. And they did. They both wrote a diatribe about the problems that they've seen in the FDA, and Wistrick published it, and it has gone like SCA viral. So I'm going to have Wistrick on to talk about that. So it'll be a weird conversation considering I'm talking to him on behalf of someone else. But this person is choosing to remain anonymous and wants their thoughts out there, but not to get credit for them. And I'm like, okay, cool. But I think the thoughts are important, so we're going to talk about that. Recruiting has changed. The SCA is dying, literally dying off. And if we don't focus on the next generation, we're going to lose it. So tune in for that next Sunday, 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. Bring your coffee. Come hang out with us. What else we got? Is it? There'll be a show Wednesday for gaming. Guys, I'm slacking. I've had 3 other shows I'm trying to get launched. My gaming show always gets left for last. So tune in Wednesday. We'll all talk about something. Probably Roman games, because I've been reading an article about Roman games. It'll probably be a Roman game related thing. Anyways. All right. Last but not least, do you have anything you want to plug? Any shows you know of coming up? Anything? What's Sean got going on? What do you got? Anything?
I don't watch his stuff. Are you kidding me?
I don't either. It's fine.
I listen to him talk fighty all the time. I don't need to watch him talk fighty on my TV.
There you go. So, what are you watching? Any shows you have coming up that you want to plug?
No, I'm really excited for your show with Lash. Actually, I know you already mentioned it, but
no, it's. I'm again terrified, but also excited. That's. I think that's
probably an appropriate response from what I know of him.
That's true. He'll appreciate hearing that. So. All right.
Ask the Knights Live has always got some good stuff going on between two peers. Yeah.
I'll leave off both on hiatus at the moment. So Ask the Knights Live will be coming back in I think a week and a half, 2 weeks somewhere in there for his 50th episode. So keep an eye out on the Ask the Knights Live page for that. But while you're waiting, go back and watch all the past episodes. Make sure you click the like, comment on YouTube. We appreciate seeing those. I guess I'll do the other business. Hold on. If you want to support Kalbardr's Corner and KK Productions and all that we're doing with the 11 channels we're now supporting, I've added 2 more in the last few weeks here. Look us up on Patreon, patreon.com/KK Productions. I actually just sent out the Patreon rewards finally for this quarter, but I will show off one of the rejects, but nifty game boards here. So we're doing these custom laser game boards for some of our patrons. Showed off one of the scrolls the other day. So look us up, patreon.com. Help us, make sure we can keep doing this. Or if you want to just buy some stickers, search Redbubble for KK Productions. And of course, I have to make a Consort Conversation sticker now. So that'll be you also can find the Do Nightly Things sheets still. They're still out there. So there you go. All right. So let's do some final thoughts. We've talked a lot about what is a consort. What is the one thing? If you had to sum it up in one sentence, what is your one sentence takeaway?
Remember, being a consort is an honor. Also remember that you have the right to speak up if you see something that is not something that you're proud of from your fighter.
There you go.
You have that right. They are fighting for your honor, and if they do something that you don't agree with, I don't say necessarily do it in the middle of the field, but you definitely need to have a conversation with that person.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's that's something I want to dig into more in future episodes. Is what can a consort do to fix their fighter? Because that's you're definitely out there. Your honor's on the line, and that's an important thing to remember. So this is there's another question came up about being the silent partner that we'll say for that one as well. That's part of that. So, all right. Well, Your Grace, I want to thank you for this. I will admit I was nervous coming into tonight's episode. I know you were nervous coming into tonight's episode, but it's always starting a new thing is nerve-wracking. So I'm looking forward to our next 5, 6, 12 episodes. I have a goal.
Let's stick with 5 or 6 and see how it goes, right?
Fair. I think we can go longer than Sean and I did. That's my goal. I think we can talk more than Sean.
We need to remind people, send questions. Also, you can private message questions to Kal or I if, for instance, you want to stay, you don't want everybody knowing it was your question. That's fine.
Yep. We'll do that. So, all right. And of course, thank you all for watching out there. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment down below, do all the YouTube button clicking, whatever down there.
Can't do it without you guys.
That's right. We appreciate you tuning in. But for tonight, this has been Nisa and Kal in Kalbardr's Corner. Night, everybody.
Night.